gathering today in Ghana, we're here to reflect, look back, and see what has happened, what have we done well, and what can we do better.
So we are going to ask you to fill in the blanks for the mission, vision, and why we are here. We have prepared cut-up phrases for you that you can quickly take and place in the filling the blanks. And the person that is able to fill the mission, vision, why we are here the quickest gets a prize. Divide up into two groups and fit the puzzles together. The puzzle is of two pieces. It's our theory of change and our wash systems building blocks.
We're moving into our first loop on evidence generation.
We need to change the thinking within the sector in terms of what kind of evidence we generate in order to convince our governments, to convince development partners around system strengthening. What is the interest of different players along that system?
We generated the evidence. I think that's why it's painful for me, because the evidence was generated. But I believe it was generated with scattered focus. And then in November 2013, a draft bill to establish the regulatory authority was developed, presented to Cabinet. And all that nearly happened, but it stopped at Cabinet reading number 3. We underestimated National Water and Sewage Corporation. Then it was the only utility in the country. They were consulted, but I think the consultation stopped at certain levels, not the real decision makers. 2015, the SWASA project ended. Then 2016, the president banned formation of any more authorities, and that included the regulatory authority. So, there's one thing to have evidence. There's another thing to make sure that that evidence fits. Why didn't we see the red flags? We had all these big studies, but we didn't sit to notice the red flags. And as a result, the impact on failure on system strengthening, we don't have an independent regulator. And issues of regulation are still there, the needs are still there.
We had a very good mayor in one of the districts called Lulindo, who approached our former CEO. He told him, you know what, you are doing amazing thing in the 4 sectors, and our 17 sectors in the entire district have the same problem of wash. Why don't we start the same initiative in all 17 districts? The challenge was we didn't have any planning document. That's the wash investment plan. We did slowly, and we just support the wash investment plan in Rulindo, which was the first wash investment plan actually in Rwanda. Starting from that building blocks assessment, we were able to showcase that collective action can really support the government to move forward.
One of the most important lessons that you took away from what was shared so far. Let's start to look at what we learned. Our dual MVPs of today, David and Pharrell.
We are gathered here for this global conference Agenda for Change is a global platform with one aim or mission to contribute to sustainable wash services.
So Agenda for Change is made up of all these organizations that you see. I would expect that you'll be recognizing some of the logos up there. These are our members. At current, we have about 20 or so organizations, and what has brought us together is the fact that we all have signed up and endorsed joint principles around collectively facilitating the acceleration of sustainable access to water, sanitation, and hygiene.
I've been asked to give a short presentation on the Ghana Wash Sector Development Program. The purpose of the document is to provide a framework for coordinated implementation of activities to achieve the vision, policy objectives, and goals of the sector. It's also meant to guide the sector. That is, it guides government, private sector, NGOs, and everybody in how we plan, how we develop and manage the national water resources and deliver sustainable water, sanitation, and hygiene services.
We have the template. What are you doing in your ministry? How much are you contributing to WASH in your ministry? Tell them to start bringing the plans. It's through the plans that we can know what somebody is doing somewhere. Then we will be able to tell whether we are really working with this document or not. That's the beginning of the coordination.
At the level of the DPs, we've started the discussions and the engagement to see how we can harmonize everything that we do. So as I looked at what Agenda for Change has, I said, well, yeah, that's a good way, bringing all of us together to work. People talk about different funding mechanisms. We've had our first engagement. We'll be going in further.
For us in the private sector, the plan is simply laying the blueprint on what is possible. I'll share an experience around how we've gone about a similar process of planning where we brought different actors from the public sector, from the non-state sector, and perhaps I think the lessons from there are the way I see this particular plan and what I think offer the most incentives for the private sector.
Ghana Wash DP is a fantastic document, but flexible. We need all hands on deck. Thankfully, last week, the ministry, as part of the sector performance review, gave an indication of where they want to focus on next year. So that is there. So DPs, check that menu and tick what you can do. Private sector NGOs indicate, MMDAs indicate. If there is a funding gap, let us know what the gaps are and also the benefit in giving a helping hand.
We form a coalition with the local administrations, and it was a bit difficult, but we have been able to achieve the goal. We will achieve the goals of 2030. If they succeed with us, then we would be able to say that that success can be upscaled with the same effort. So everything that we succeeded to do in the past came to an end because the mayors changed the technician. This was done according to their political tendencies. They have a network that helped them to work together with the mayors. So they decide what to do. And they also have a unit that is an advisory committee. The community can share the same message with all the mayors, and it makes it easier to influence groups. So that's the system that we are now using, and that system is working even when there is a change in authority.
In context of Nepal, majority of the water systems, even the small town water systems, they are being managed by the Water Users Committee, constructed and managed. But the evidence says, around 25% of these drinking water systems been collapsed or not functioning within 4 to 5 years of construction. If we could bring all these Water Users Committee under the umbrella of a big governing body at the local government, giving overall management oversight by the local government, then that would somehow address the functionality of the water supply schemes. That's why we started working with local government to create that governing institution at the local level. We have only strong civil society organizations. That's called Federation of Water Users Committee Network in Nepal, Federation. And government wanted to bring them onto the discussions. On the floor, they agree the idea, but on the backside, they really reluctant to form that water board in the local government. We were failed to really formulate that water board at the local government. So the two key reasons, we started creating the structure and started working without real mapping of the strength of Federation, which are not in our allies. So that was two key reasons that how we failed. Now the policy has come up, and that allows local government to form that sort of structure at the local level. Now, with that failure stories and learning, now we are now entering into success stories that forming a water board at the local level.
When partnering with government, what is a critical action we should take? The second question is, when partnering with government, what is a critical practice we should have? We're going to do something called a 25-10. We had 4 rounds of 5 points apiece. That's a total of 20. So keep your card up if it got at least a 10 in total. Okay, keep your card up if it got at least an 11. Got at least a 12, got a 13, got a 14, 15, 16, 17, okay, 16. Cool.
Moving into our Day 3 theme of collective action.
How do we position our collective value add to essentially enable this vehicle for collective action that's already being led by government? And that took me back to, once again, the One Wash National Program in Ethiopia, where it's a similar program. Led by government, it's a sector-wide approach. It brings together water, education, the finance ministry, the health sector.
It was approved in 2003 by our government. Since that time, this policy just remained on paper and was never implemented. We didn't have the necessary resources, and there was no national plan on potable water. And up to now, we do not have any plan or concrete project or anything with regard to system strengthening. And this is one of the challenges which we have had in the country. During a brainstorming workshop, we decided to define a number of actions, that's the joint actions, to implement actions which will help to strengthen the wash sector in Guatemala. And we arrived at the conclusion that we needed to have an advocacy plan. And this plan was we started implementing in 2020. We've been making advocacy and lobbying with the government at different levels with key actors within the sector. Whereas the failure at the country level is that the policy then stalled. It wasn't it turned out not to be a priority for the government, and the policy has not been approved up to now.
As Agenda for Change collaborative partners, when we did the building block assessment and prioritized what needs to be done in terms of system strengthening, we came with 3 things. Today I will just focus on the service delivery one, but government still indicated that but we don't have enough evidence. And then we said, as a collective Agenda for Change collaborating partners, that we will then support the ministry to conduct this study. When the TORs were developed, we made sure that in the review of the TORs for the consultant that would do this, they are government people, they are NGOs, they are development partners that are part, and it gets accepted and agreed upon by all these people, so that everything people that are looking forward, that would help to make the next decision in terms of the direction of travel, it's in that TORs and it's covered. But the last validation, we said, why can't we all just be in one place and do this together and here? And it was in that room when we were all meeting, people were able to express their fears of what that, if the proposed direction of travel was taken, or if the changes were taken, how it would affect even the government institutional structure. Finally, in October, this was launched. So that's what collaboration can do.